We're going to go for Ferrari. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. We're going to go for Ferrari's golden boy. Ferrari's golden boy is going to come first, I think. I think it's going to be Charles first, Hamilton second. And I think these upgrades are going to work. I have a feeling these upgrades are going to work. I think Red Bull are going to show that their upgrades are going to work.
A little confused, but he got the spirit.
But I don't think they're going to be faster than Ferrari. The Mercedes are going to get impacted by these. I do think they're going to get impacted by the whole temperatures, curbing, reliability. Well, those predictions went well. What's up, guys? Welcome to Racing Insights. My name is Austrian, and today we are here to review and react to the 2026 Austrian Grand Prix. Now, first and foremost, I would like to say that I got it so wrong this weekend. I genuinely am very disappointed and kind of embarrassed that the first predictions I had on this channel were that bad. Now, to be quite honest, there were factors in this race that happened that I just simply did not expect to happen at the start of the weekend. First and foremost, Mercedes just improving their reliability. We didn't know they were going to bring upgrades to the track concerning those reliability issues. I mean, out of all the Mercedes cars, only two had problems. One was Norris in practice, if I'm not mistaken, and even he had hydraulic issues. And in the race, Sainz had some issues, and that was about it. All the Mercedes cars were able to survive the entire race completely fine. And generally speaking, I just got it wrong when it came to Ferrari and Mercedes in particular, to be quite honest. I think those two teams, I just completely got it the wrong way around. We're going to talk about it in this video, of course, and in this review. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you guys think of the race? Who did you guys think won the most out of this race? Won the least out of this race? Who was the biggest loser from this race? And generally speaking, where do you rank the race as a whole? Of course, I want to do a driver rankings as well. That'll be coming out tomorrow. And furthermore, I will be doing a race review for the 6 hours of Glen for IMSA and the 24 hours of Spa that happened this weekend as well. That'll be coming out hopefully tomorrow, at least one of them, and then the other one on Wednesday. So be sure to get subscribed and of course leave a like so that this video goes out into the algorithm. We want this channel to get bigger and stronger. I want to talk about Formula 1 and other disciplines of motorsport as well with a lot of people. So I appreciate every bit of your support in that endeavor. Now, my general memory from this race in terms of how it went and generally what was the biggest factor when it came to this race is probably two things: setup and strategy. Now, it's not the same level of strategy that I was expecting as I was expecting in this race as we saw in Barcelona 2 weeks ago. No. It's not that type of strategy. This type of strategy was more so about just executing it the way it should have been executed, in the sense, what is predictable, just do that, right? I think that was what won Russell the race more so than anybody else, over Verstappen, over Antonelli, who both seemed faster than Russell at intervals. We're going to check out all the telemetry, the average mean speeds and everything in just a moment when we go into the deep data dive. But generally speaking, you could even see it towards the end of the race that Verstappen and Antonelli generally had more pace than Russell, especially Antonelli was catching Verstappen was catching Russell, right? In the end, they were only separated by 2 seconds, as you can see here, which is bloody brilliant. But what made the differing factor, which we saw other people's races unravel because of that, was just making sure that the strategy was plain and simple, clear cut. This is the lap we're stopping, and this is the other lap we're stopping, and that's it. No extra stops, no going for a one stop, no extending stints or anything of that sort, which I think, again, like I said, unraveled a lot of other people's races. Now, let's go over the standings first and foremost and talk about who came where first and foremost. So we'll start off from the very bottom. Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez both retired on lap 2 and 4 respectively. Then Carlos Sainz on lap 23, which signaled the first virtual safety car, the only virtual safety car. I was expecting more. Like I said, I thought that this Austrian Grand Prix was gonna be a classic. We're gonna see, situations happen. We're gonna see the front runners potentially take each other out, like we have seen in yesteryears. I think this was a good race, by the way, and we'll come on to it in just a moment. I think this was a good race, but it wasn't a classic like other races. Lance Stroll also DNF'd on lap 45. I actually didn't even notice he DNF'd, to be quite honest. Fernando Alonso was 3 laps down. Alexander Albon 2 laps down alongside Esteban Ocon in 16th. 15th was Franco Colapinto. The 14th was Oliver Bearman. 13th was Pierre Gasly. 11th and 12th was rounded up by the Audis in a Noah's Ark formation. And then you had Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad starting off the points paying positions with 9th and 10th, respectively. Very good race from the Racing Bulls. Like I said in my preview, these guys, as long as they can continue to just pinch away, maybe bring their own chassis upgrades and everything, obviously knowing that they're not going to get the advantage of ADUO like Mercedes customers, Ferrari customers and whatnot. They've just got to take all these points that they can get before these big teams start introducing bigger upgrades for the customers to benefit from as well, right? So Racing Bulls, big ups to them for obviously taking away a good solid 3 points. Charles Leclerc in Ferrari coming in 8th position. Very bad race from him, of course. Very, very, very disappointing. Lando Norris in P7, which was a pretty... it was a very subdued performance from Norris. Very, very difficult, I would say. Just generally weekend for him, starting off with the hydraulic issues in FP1, getting used to the setups and everything along the way into qualifying. Did a decent job in qualifying from what I remember. And then, of course, in the race, just again, sort of unraveled his own race with a very long strategy that just didn't work for the McLaren that he has underneath him. Isaac Hadjar, fantastic race from him in P6, getting some good points for Red Bull. Obviously not the same level as what Verstappen was doing. He was about 28 seconds ahead of him, but still good race, of course, from Isaac, still second Red Bull seat, curse and all that sort of stuff. Solid performance from him. Hamilton, another person whose race got unraveled by strategy in P5. He's just got to not take risks in this situation if he wants to have those championship chances alive by the end of the season, of course, as Ferrari brings upgrades to the engine and the car. Oscar Piastri, very solid race in P4. I said it in my preview that I was hoping for more for Piastri, and he delivered. P4 is a very solid race from him, of course, and ahead of his teammate Lando Norris as well. 10 seconds ahead of him. Very solid race. Antonelli in P3 could have had more, potentially should have had more had he maybe done his strategy a little bit better as well. Verstappen in P2 and winning the race after a couple of races of not being there to challenge for the win is George Russell. Well, I say that he did challenge for the win in Spain, and he should have probably won it had it not been for Ferrari coming out of nowhere and actually performing for some reason on that track. I say some reason. We might have a reason for that. We'll talk about it again in this race review. Like I said, I enjoyed this race. I think it was a good race overall. The mid part was a little bit dry in some ways. Obviously, the only spicy thing that happened was Lewis Hamilton's change to softs under the VSC. But overall, it was a very dry race in the middle, but the start, very thrilling, of course, right? You had all that action on lap 1 and 2, cars swarming all around. And then, of course, that massive battle between Max and Hamilton as well. Fantastic race between the two. I mean, I even said it to somebody that, where was this clean racing in 2021? Very good racing from the two. Of course, Verstappen had a shout towards the, stewards about potential pushing off the track and everything. But I thought from what I saw, it was very clean racing, very hard racing, but clean racing nonetheless. And towards the end, of course, seeing the chase happen, Verstappen to Russell, Antonelli to Verstappen. Oh my God, that was so good as well. I genuinely was enjoying the last couple of laps, and I was like, damn, Antonelli might actually get Verstappen here to get P2 and not lose that many points away to George Russell, of course, who retakes P2 in the standings, by the way. We'll take a look at the overall standings later on. But yes, very, very generally good race. I wouldn't say it's a great race. I personally enjoyed Spain a little bit more, but that's because I prefer the idea of spinning the dice, roll the dice for an exciting strategy, get some people going on that strategy, and then look into potentially who can catch and whatnot. That was a lot of fun as well. This was still a very good race, I think, though. This was still a very solid 7 to 8 out of 10 race. That one is probably just half a point or a point better for me personally. But overall, very good race. Very, very fun race to watch, nonetheless. Not a classic, but still a very good race, to be honest. I want to go over some winners and losers before we go into maybe the team deep dive overall. And the first thing I will say is the biggest winners out of this race is probably Mercedes and Red Bull. Of course, Mercedes back on top, both cars on the podium. Very good race. More importantly, no reliability woes, which is exceptional considering the hot temperatures, of course, right? This is something that I was saying that maybe Mercedes should fear, going into this weekend, along with the curbing as well, maybe hurting the battery pack or engine components could be disastrous for them. Still, very good performance from both drivers to just get it across the line. And even just generally, if you look at, the only Mercedes retirement was Carlos Sainz. Everybody else got it over the line. Albon, Colapinto, Gasly, Norris, Piastri, Antonelli, Russell all came across the line completely A-OK. And Red Bull, they won because they brought upgrades, made their car minimum weight, and looked to be on form once again. They looked to be deadly now once again. And remember, this is the first race with the upgrades. Come few more races when they can dial in that setup, get that setup just perfect for Max and Isaac. They're gonna enjoy that car, and I think they're gonna be a potential, maybe not challenge for the title. I think they're a bit far behind for that, but I do think that they can put it into the mix to where they can challenge for potential wins and also potentially annoy the hell out of Russell or Antonelli when they're trying to get those extra points to avoid losing against the other person in the championship, right? That is going to be something to look out for as well. In terms of biggest losers, I have to say it's probably Ferrari and Cadillac. In terms of Cadillac, we'll start off with them. Double DNF within 4 laps. The upgrades they brought, class. The fact that they were only I think they weren't even a couple of tenths away from Williams. They were 2, maybe 3 tenths away from them in qualifying. They were very close, gained a huge amount of performance with the upgrades. They were ahead of Aston Martin by a good 1.5 second as well, or a second at least ahead of them, if I'm not mistaken. But what good are upgrades when they just destroy your reliability? The car was overheating constantly over the weekend. You had issues with breakdowns, generally speaking, with the car breaking down. Still, it was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, for Cadillac this weekend. And they don't have that much time between now and Silverstone, which is literally in 5 days time, or 4 days time even, for practice 1. You don't have that much time to actually get stuff fixed, I'd imagine, immediately, right? Because they probably would have to do the research, open and figure out what do they need to remove, adjust, figure out that what upgrade is causing these overheating issues, because this is even worse than I think I've seen them all season. I was complaining and saying that, oh yeah, fair enough, everything is fine and dandy, you've got the performance now. Free practice 1, we saw the performance, qualifying showed that performance. And then you come across the end of the weekend and you're not even finishing 5 laps in total. It's a shame. It's a disaster, to be quite honest, for Cadillac in that sense, because now you are facing an issue where the car is faster, but now it's unreliable. Much easier to fix, to be fair, compared to a slow car that's reliable, but still, now it's again a case of you have to go back to the drawing board and work on it more, spend more time, more budget on making the car reliable rather than making the car faster, right? That's the problem here. So Cadillac, definitely a lot to go back and look at on the drawing board to make sure that they don't have this type of weekend again next week. And Ferrari, where do we begin? Both cars had just weird strategies overall. Charles, let's start off with Charles, who I think his race was unraveled from the very beginning. He had deployment issues from the very beginning. I think he was apparently talking about turbo issues before the race even began, in the formation lap or on the way to the grid. And you could see that in the first 2 laps, he took some time in getting going. He was losing pace regularly. And then on the strategy front, they were just chewing into the tires, both cars even. And that hurt Leclerc even more because he was on the 2-stop, whereas Hamilton at least tried a 3-stop, which also didn't work. But both cars faced, it's bizarre with Ferrari because Spain, no issues. They were probably even the best when it came to tire deck, considering how good Hamilton was just absolutely taking away time from the Mercedes boys. But this week, it was completely different. And what it seems like the issue is, and we're going to take a look at maybe a little bit of data here. Big shout outs to F1 Insights Hub, by the way, for, having this website obviously available for us to check out details about the races and stuff. So let's take a look at the race first and foremost. I'm going to bring up Hamilton if I can. No lap or stint data available for them. Fan-bloody-tastic. I wish I did have him. I did have some data for them because I just feel like Hamilton's pace overall, right? It was just nowhere near capable enough to this. I mean, you look at this, right? The delta times, even per sector, like, it was just multiple. He was losing a 10th, 2 tenths, 3 tenths even per sector, which was crazy to say the least. Ferrari, obviously, were generally having a lower mean speed compared to the likes of McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull. Red Bull had the highest mean speed, which again, by the way, I'm sorry, but you guys can't complain about 80 euro anymore. Clearly, we're seeing some good speed from the drivers in terms of their top speed, which is fantastic. But yeah, I think the biggest issue with Ferrari, from what I could tell, from the little bits and bobs that I could tell, of course, from, people talking and just generally what you could see in the race and generally what we were seeing when, they were coming out of corners, they were just sliding all the time. They were just gaining oversteer. It was always on traction. It wasn't through the corner they were struggling. It was coming out of the corners they were struggling. And what that indicates more than anything else, right? More than anything else, what that indicates is energy deployment and power delivery to the tires. That caused a lot of problems, in my opinion, to the car, generally speaking. I think that was what was causing the most trouble to the car, because what that does is when you have higher power delivery or a very aggressive power delivery to the race car, right? You're going to have some problems where the tires are chewed up, basically, right? You're spinning the tires more, causing more thermal deg, more general degradation to the tire. And that is a problem. Do we have Charles at least? Let me see. Let's see here. No stints for them. Who do we have stints for? Okay, we have stints for... No, not for Verstappen. Do we have any for Antonelli? No. Piastri? No. Fantastic. Lawson? No. Norris? Potentially? No. Okay, unfortunately, I don't think we do have any data. Unfortunately, we have data from Barcelona, maybe. Let's see here. Potentially. Yes, we do have data. So I think it takes some time for the data to come in, but we'll worry about that later. We might talk about it more in the driver rankings then. Hopefully, by then, we'll have some more data to come in and talk about when it comes to the race pace and everything. Get an idea of stint times and average pace and everything. But the idea was that for the drivers, especially for Ferrari, I think the biggest issue has been that, is simply put, the car was too aggressive on its power delivery. Hence, why the degradation was worse on the Ferraris than the other cars. Why they had to do a 3-stop for both drivers, because Leclerc had to come in towards the end because he was just losing time hand over fist. I think he was losing a second a lap to Norris when he was getting overtaken by Norris at that point, which was terrible to watch, just bad. And then, of course, in the final stint, he actually was doing pretty good, but he had requested like a -10 flap change as well, which means he's lowered the angle to get a little bit more just speed, generally less, less front end, to just be able to get a little bit more performance out of it. Yeah, it was just terrible for both drivers. And to be honest, with Hamilton as well, like, I get what they were trying to do with the VSC, try and risk it, do something different with the strategy. I have to give my hands up for that, but at the same time, would it have been better to maybe not lose track position to Piastri? Potentially. I mean, the thing is, a pit stop around this track is 20 seconds, give or take, right? doing that extra pit stop would have probably lost him another 8 or 9 seconds on top of how far he was behind Piastri. But he might have extended it and pit much later, right? He would have pit much later, which would have meant he would have had fresher tires potentially compared to Piastri, catching him up. Would he have passed him? It's difficult to say. Again, it's the same thing as, Barcelona, where if the VSC wasn't there, would he have caught him? I don't know. So it's difficult in that sense. I think it is a bit rough in that sense to figure out whether or not, Hamilton would have caught him if he had not pit under VSC and done an extra pit stop like Leclerc did later on. He would have maybe lost even more time with how his tires would have been as well. I think, generally speaking, it was a difficult weekend for Ferrari. One thing I will correct myself as well that I got completely wrong in the preview video was how the turbos worked in F1 especially, and with the altitude. It's the other way around, actually, to what I was expecting. I call myself an engineer. I have a degree in engineering, but I still got it the other way around. God knows why, even though I knew that, of course, but I just got it the other way around. The smaller turbos in high altitudes wasn't helping because of the lack of air and whatnot. It just wasn't helping. Whereas the bigger turbos were actually able to perform better, generally speaking. So that I did get wrong. I'll put my hands up and say that. But that does mean that, again, Ferrari are going to lose out on tracks like Austria, like potentially the likes of Mexico, right? That's going to be a problem. But even still, they're going to struggle, generally speaking, I feel, as well, on power-dependent circuits, because what Hamilton said, and this is very interesting, is that they're not really losing speed in terms of lack of power, but it's the deployment at the end where they're dropping the performance, and they want to understand how and why they can improve that. And it's very interesting because every team has the same amount of deployment, right? 8.5 megajoules and whatnot. What that potentially suggests is, one, the energy transfer from the, a battery pack to the actual power is not good enough. For one, software-wise, software could be a problem. Or two, temperatures. And this is, of course, what Mercedes and all were struggling with reliability-wise. But Ferrari are struggling with it more so in terms of ensuring that performance is there. Because even in the race as well, Mode TS, Hamilton was told to engage Mode TS. And Hamilton, engaging Mode TS, dropped back from Piastri to obviously cool the temperatures and everything, so that then he could charge forward. And he was able to charge forward a bit better when he was able to go back to Mode Race. And what that suggests is that temperatures to the battery isn't showing that potentially they're not able to keep up that deployment because it's getting too hot. And that is also a problem. This is only something Ferrari will confirm, and I don't think they will confirm that. They tend to keep all these things very close to their chest when it comes to details. They've been a lot more open when it comes to problems and issues, but most teams are like this as well, where they'll not give everything away. They'll give a little bit of the issue away, but not everything away. And so we're going to have to assume that that is probably one of the problems of Ferrari's deployment potentially, and that's something they're going to have to fix. Of course, well and good, you bring more power and everything to Zandvoort is when they're going to bring in next. So we're going to have to struggle with both Silverstone and also Spa, which are going to be... Spa is going to be a nightmare to watch for a Ferrari fan for sure, but I think it's going to be still something interesting we're going to see when it comes to the performance of the Ferrari and how bad it might be. Verstappen was also quoted as saying, actually, with Silverstone, let's go to Twitter quickly and just say Verstappen, Silverstone. Verstappen had a very good quote for how bad Silverstone is going to be, because it's a shame, because I love Silverstone as a track. I went to Silverstone a few years ago. Very good track, very fun track to attend for sure. But man, Max Verstappen's quote, I drove a few laps on the simulator and then I just burst out laughing. With these cars, it felt like a different track. From what it seems like is that Silverstone is going to be a bit difficult when it comes to energy management and stuff, and that's going to be a struggle for, I think, all teams for sure. But Mercedes might be the one best equipped to deal with a track like that. we're gonna have to just wait and see. We'll talk a bit more about it in our race preview, and maybe on Friday's sessions we'll be able to get a better idea. But damn, man, I really hope it doesn't look bad in Silverstone. I really hope the racing doesn't look bad in Silverstone, because I'm gonna be very disappointed. I've grown more affectionate to Silverstone as years have gone by, and of course attending the race, absolute pleasure. So yeah, it will be a shame to see the racing be bad there. But yeah, overall, like I said, those were my biggest winners, biggest losers of the weekend. Again, I'm going to go into more depth per team and also per driver in tomorrow's ranking video, because we'll do drivers and team simultaneously. I'll put them in a rank across a sort of like column, basically. So you'll have drivers, team, and then so on and so forth. But yes, very good race overall. Like I said, I think, generally speaking, the Mercedes look very dangerous still, now that if they have actually fixed their reliability woes. We're probably going to see them dominate the rest of the season. But I think Max and Red Bull have something to say now, and that is super exciting as well. I'm very much looking forward to it. And overall, generally speaking, when it came to the rest of the field, I would say, again, like I said, I think Racing Bulls have genuinely impressed me. This is their third double points in a row, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is back to back in terms of double points, which is, again, like what I said earlier on, what they need exactly. If you take a look at the driver standing, first and foremost, we've got Kimi Antonelli still leading the way at 171 points. Russell is only 40 points behind now. Hamilton is 46 points behind. He's not lost that much to Antonelli, only 6 points behind. I think he's lost 5 points in this race, of course. Piastri and Norris overtake Charles to 4th and 5th. Only 1 point separates the top 4th, 5th, and 6th. Verstappen is in 7th at 73 points, gained a huge chunk of points in this race, obviously pushing Red Bull a bit further. Isaac Hadjar in P8, of course, at 42 points. Gasly at P9, 41 points. Liam Lawson at 30 points in P10. Very, very underrated season going on for Lawson. And I'm going to talk maybe in a separate video about the whole rumors regarding his seat at Red Bull Racing Bulls, and of course Solov and his potential replacing of Lawson next season. We'll talk about that. Behrman in P11. I mean, like I said with Haas, again, where were they this race? Bottom 15? Yeah, I mean, Behrman for 14th. It's just not good enough from Haas. Maybe some updates next weekend. We'll have to just wait and see. Colapinto in 12th with 16 points. Arvid Lindblad in P13 with 14 points. Sainz in P14 with 6 points. Albon 15th with 5 points. Ocon 3 points. Bortoletto in 17th in 2 points, and Alonso in 18th with 1 point, with the rest of the runners, Hulkenberg, Bottas, Perez, and Stroll with 0 points. In terms of teams standings, Mercedes extend massively, 102 point advantage over Ferrari in first place. McLaren catching up a little bit with 159 points, of course, finishing ahead of both Ferraris. Not together, but like Oscar ahead of Hamilton and Norris ahead of Leclerc gives them an extra couple of points, which helps them massively. Red Bull making gains, of course, now on McLaren with that amazing finish from Verstappen with 115 points. Alpine in 5th, still maintaining at 57 points, but Racing Bull slowly but surely catching up with, 3 points a race. Like I said, if there's a race where, the front runners kind of have a kerfuffle, maybe Racing Bulls can take advantage and get some extra points on the board that will get them ahead of Alpine potentially. Haas in P7 with 21 points. Williams in P8 with 11 points. Audi and Aston Martin round off the points finishers in 9th and 10th, with Cadillac at 0. Overall, nothing majorly shaken up in terms of the team standings, but it's the driver standings where, of course, things have shaken up, especially in the top 6. Do I think... Well, we're not on Verstappen. I don't need to know Verstappen specifically. But it's going to be very interesting to see how, Silverstone fares for all these teams. I think we're going to see a better Ferrari. I do feel generally. It has also been suggested that Ferrari is going to be bringing upgrades again this weekend, which crazy how much they're bringing upgrades. I know some people are probably worried about cost cap and everything, but they have accountants, they know what they're doing. And in terms of front loading a lot of these updates, I think that is a fair thing to say. But remember, this is not the end of a regulation set like what Red Bull was doing last year with upgrading their cars throughout, and then struggling at the start of the season. Now, I don't think it's anything like that of that sort, because whatever is going to be used this year is going to be used next year as well, outside of the FTM, right? That's the only thing. And Ferrari are working on making sure that they don't have that issue by testing it without it, like they did in Austria this weekend. So I think these factors have to be, considered for sure. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below overall of this general weekend. What do you guys think? Like I said, we'll be doing a driver ranking tomorrow. And let me know if there's any other talking points you guys want me to include when it comes to these race reviews. I don't want to just do a play-by-play of what happened during a weekend. So I want to kind of, go over the standings, go over maybe some data. But unfortunately, obviously, I don't think F1 Insight Hubs has had the chance to update it with all the data. Again, I think maybe we're going to get it potentially tomorrow. So we'll do it maybe tomorrow with the drivers rankings. I can do the data a little bit more in detail, so that'll be a little bit more fun. And I want to do a biggest winners, biggest losers, and maybe a little bit of a something else, so maybe a best surprise or something. We can do something along those lines. Let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys have a lovely rest of your day, weekend, afternoon, wherever you may be. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.